Well, hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Faith Reframed, where we try to help you reframe your faith rather than lose it. My name is Jesse. I deconstructed all the way to atheism after spending a lifetime growing up in the charismatic church, and by the grace of God, I found my faith in Jesus Christ. So today, what we are going to be doing is looking over Shawn Bolz. In a nutshell, what I've been getting a lot is a lot of comments and questions of like, why is this a big deal? Who is this guy? And people not really knowing the full story. So what I want to do today is kind of tell the story of Shawn Bolz by Shawn Bolz a little bit. I'm going to be going through his websites, his bios, showing prophetic words throughout the years, how this has been a pattern, using the Wayback Machine. We're doing some internet super sleuthing, and then also showing how there's why what's going on with Shawn Bolz and Bethel is kind of a big deal right now, and how far back and how deep it all goes. So yeah, I hope you guys found this helpful. You know, this may be a recap for some of you. For others, this may help you see the big picture. Sometimes when you step in the middle of something and you're not sure what's going on, it can be really confusing and you're just like, what is all of this? And so I'm really trying to frame that all up for you guys. So I hope you find this helpful, and let's go ahead and break it down. So I figured one of the easiest ways to break this all down was to let's see who Shawn says he is and go through a lot of his bios. And also by using the Wayback Machine, seeing his biographies or his profile pages in leadership throughout the years. So we're going to reverse engineer a little bit. We're going to start from the end and then go backward from there. So currently, this is on the Bolz Ministry page, is who Shawn Bolz kind of describes himself. So Shawn is a TV host, news commentator, both as a personality and writer, media producer, and a Christian minister. He has been driving a positive narrative in news stories, the entertainment industry, and social justice, and especially in issues that affect Christianity. Whether you are listening to him interviewing a business leader or in his CBN show, podcast, or watching his live news commentary, podcast, or YouTube, you are bound to come away with seeing things in a way that you never thought of before. Shawn is interviewed on many popular shows like Fox News, CBN News, 700 Club, Centerpoint, TBN News, Praise on TBN, and The Joni Show. All right. So lots there. So Shawn basically is a personality commentator, doesn't really proclaim himself to be a prophet anymore. Doesn't really proclaim himself to be any kind of minister, really. It's more just, I guess he says as a minister, he's deeply connected. So I guess he would say he's still a minister, but he doesn't say he's a prophet by any means, or he doesn't really lean on his prophetic style. So from there, I thought, okay, let's jump way back. No pun there, but kind of a pun. Let's jump on the Wayback Machine. One of the first ways I heard about Shawn Bolz was through his church, Expression 58. So there's a church in LA that Shawn's been a part of. I think it was almost a decade he was a pastor at. And some of his staff, mainly the Toledos, would come up to speak at Bethel quite a bit, both in first year and second year. And Shawn started coming up with that as well. So I jumped on the Wayback Machine. I went on Expression 58's website, and I went all the way back to, this is a snapshot from April 3rd of 2008. So again, we're looking at Shawn. This is going to be his Director Expressions 58 profile. So we're going to read this one out. Again, just given the bio of this is how Shawn used to present himself going up to this. So Shawn's passion is to influence Christians to take on their journey of intimacy with God wholeheartedly. He has used his prophetic ministry. So prophetic ministry is full forward here. So he is very much a prophet during this time. And his fresh biblical perspective in his teaching, life coaching messages to help come to a relational approach with God that is both organic and revelatory. Shawn has been in ministry since 1993, speaking at conferences, schools, and television programs, all with the heart for training and equipping people in their life to further pursue God and mentoring people in spiritual development. Now here's where it's really important. So Shawn has been involved in different types of leadership with Metro Christian Fellowship with Mike Bickle for 8 years. So he's an IHOP guy. That's where his background's from, IHOP KC, so International House of Prayer, in Kansas City for 4 years. While there, he taught in the Bible school, ministered to thousands of leaders in the body of Christ from every Christian denomination, and mentored many people. He was also known as one of the prophetic voices in Kansas City, where he was involved with Shiloh and prophetic leadership. All right, so there's a lot more here. Talks about his 2 books, Throne Room Company, Keys to Heaven Economy, Visitation from the Minister of Finance, which we're going to talk about, and many other things. Last part here, because of the hand of God in Shawn's life from a young age, he also embraced young people, helping them to grab hold of their destiny. He's traveled across denomination cities, countries, age gap on 1,000 destinations. All right, so Shawn very much saw himself as a prophet. He was a prophetic voice. He was trained as a prophet, one could argue. at International House of Prayer with Mike Bickle. I would also note that Bob Hartley was there at the time, and many of what we call the traditional KC prophets, which is a lot of the for lack of better terms, those were kind of the big voices at the time when it comes to the prophetic world. Now, what I have here is a clip off of YouTube from, let's see, this is 12 years ago. So this is almost 2013, maybe. Yeah, 2013. Crazy. On an interview he's done talking about the visitation from the Minister of Finance. So let's go ahead and take a listen to this.
I was asleep, thought it was a real man, woke up, startled at the foot of my bed. I look at him and I'm like, oh my gosh, there's a man in here. What is this? And your mind's racing going, what's going on? And I wanted to say something like, who are you? But then I'm thinking, this could be one of those encounters. This could be an encounter of a God kind. Is this a real man who broke into
the music feels like James Bond, GoldenEye, N64. Just got to say it.
House. He looks like he's here for a purpose. He didn't feel unsafe. And all of a sudden I hear a voice right here from this side of my head. And it said, welcome the Minister of Finance of the Kingdom.
So this was a big part of what Shawn did. Big part of his kind of his book tour, his ministry, was going through this whole Minister of Finance. I don't know how to put it. It was one of his first big book pushes, and it starts off with this idea of hearing God directly, with having supernatural encounters, extra biblical encounters. One could argue, things that really aren't in Scripture. And it starts really early on. This is like one of his first video appearances, at least I could find online. Obviously, there might be earlier ones, but that's one of the earliest ones I could find. And so we start off with this. This is the Shawn Bolz who kind of made himself known in the early public eye. Now moving forward, we have a couple more clips, a couple more interactions that we have with Shawn that are going to help us get a good idea of how his ministry grew and changed over the years. This next one is part of a series he did that was same place doing an interview. This one is in 2011. And this is where he starts describing the prophetic and really talking about prophecy and how he sees prophecy
outside of the church.
Yeah, I mean, when I grew up in the church, we always had prophecy. So from the time I was little, my parents would say, what are you hearing from God? So I never had a time where all of a sudden the gift of prophecy came to my life. It just was always there in the community. So I never felt especially gifted. I just felt like a Christian. And when I was older, I realized that a lot of the people who prophesy, who were prophets or who were more prophetically gifted, that they always gave people words like, you're going to work in this position of the church, you're going to give this position of the church, you're going to be the worship leader, you're going to be a pastor, you're going to be... But no one ever talked to the business people, the entertainers, the educators, the politicians.
Interesting.
And so as I was growing up, I thought, there's something missing here. Like, I feel like I'm not called just to ministry. Like, I'm called, and I would tell people, I feel called to work on video games and to work and write stories. And they would look at me like I was crazy. Like,
So if you don't know, that's a big part of Shawn's story when he talks about it. I was trying to find clips of this testimony, but basically we can see here is that Shawn's been involved in the prophetic since he was young. This is something that he grew up in. It's not a new thing for him. It's not something that he just kind of stumbled upon. He grew up in this lifestyle. One could argue, I could see to play devil's advocate, like that's why he's so good at it, because he grew up in it all the time. Okay, there's another part of this interview I'm going to show you guys that kind of fleshes out a little bit more. Let's jump over to that. All right, sorry, this one's Shawn's going to be talking about some of his manifestations and experiences, and something that I found interesting. He talks about judging them, which one of our future podcast episodes is going to talk a bit more about this, but take a listen to this one.
And I've done extreme manifestations in certain meetings like Toronto Renewal, that kind of stuff. But I remember there was a time where I was holding myself back from experiencing God that way because I judged so many people who weren't real and authentic. And then God asked.
So he's saying he held back his experience because he was judging other people. And one of the things that sometimes they talk about Bethel is how if you judge people's manifestations or experiences, you're basically cutting yourself off from them. So that's kind of where this came from here.
One time, do you want to know the true, the authentic in that experience? Because you're throwing it all away. And so I said, yeah. And then within 2 minutes, a friend of mine named Jill Austin, who's passed away now, came over and she goes, don't you want everything from God? And I was like, yes. And I fell over having an incredible encounter that was deep inside of me, that my body, I didn't even know what my body was doing. And later on, I found out from other people. And I was like, wow, I would have never known. So I feel like sometimes we see humanity and God's saying, look up, Colossians 3:1-3. Look up at heaven. Don't look here. Look up higher. And so if you're a Christian and you're blocked from something that's good because you've seen a counterfeit, you have a responsibility to search out the real.
So if you've been watching my channel for any bit of time, you would know right away that's like classic physics of heaven. We talk about the counterfeit, talk about the real. What does that mean? All that stuff starts coming into play. So yeah, this kind of breaks down who Shawn is, kind of who Shawn kind of presented himself to be. We get a little bit of history of Shawn here, and really starting to learn how did he grow up in the prophetic, where did he learn to prophesy, and what did that look like. So at this point in Shawn's career, he's part of Expressions 58. He's putting books out. He's talking about the minister of finance. He's talking about a lot of heavenly experiences he's having. And then we start entering into kind of the domain where he starts getting more of a public platform. So we're going to start off on that now. All right. So now we're at March 31st, 2016. We're about 9 years back now. And this is where Shawn, going the way back machine, he's still the pastor at Expressions 58. Going to go over his bio now. So outside of drinking impressive amounts of coffee and spending time with two of his ridiculously cute daughters, Shawn's passion to influence Christians and to take their journey of intimacy with God wholeheartedly. He has used his prophetic ministry, so still very much a prophet, and fresh biblical perspective. They keep saying that, fresh biblical perspective, in his teaching and coaching to help people adopt a relational approach with God that is organic and revelatory, much like his approach to produce at Whole Foods. Shawn has written 4 books, Translating God. So at this point, Translating God has come out. The Throne Room Company, Keys to Heaven, Economy, An Angelic Visitation with the Minister of Finance, which we talked about earlier, The Non-Religious Guide to Dating and Being Single. Shawn has a burning heart to see the entertainment industry and the creative arts come to revival. He has been influencing believers who are in performing arts for many years. So still very much a prophet, still very much part of or running in the Bethel Circle. Something that's interesting. That same year at his church, Sozo, I think it was about 4 or 5 years, maybe after this, maybe or before this, maybe a little bit later, Sozo was introduced at his church. So to be a Sozo church, you have to be affiliated with Bethel. You have to have Bethel teams come out. You have to have the Bethel Sozo team come and teach your church. You have to have basically like a couple week Bethel conference to get officially trained. So this is not something that you just get. You have to actually have connection and relationship with Bethel. So this is just kind of a hard evidence of just relationship with Bethel. Now, on top of that, we have some prophecies that he's given. Now, this gets pretty interesting. So I'm going to start with this one here. I'm going to see if you guys can kind of catch what's so interesting about this prophecy. So we're going to listen to this one here.
How about people from Bend, Oregon? Because I have a word from someone from Bend, Oregon. Who's from Bend, Oregon? There's several people. Is there like a building that one of you has or a house on Bend Road or something? Bend Road. Is that you guys? That's real? Thank God. I had nothing else, so that's good. I had one more note, but none of this really makes sense.
So looking back, some of this kind of, you can like, it almost feels staged when I watch it now, but he kind of plays it off. So watch what happens.
Except for, yeah.
Everyone's like, do it, say what it is.
I'll get there, don't worry. My process is just, okay, I'm just going to pray for you because that doesn't work. I'm just seeing Ronald McDonald. What does that mean?
Name's Ron.
Your name's Ron.
Ron,
Yay,
yeah.
It works.
So just a note, very simple things in big event on Facebook. This is a conference event at Bethel. They could all be registered. Ron from Bend, Oregon. Pretty simple, right?
Thank Jesus.
We just got back from.
I was in a meeting, and
This right here. This story right here.
where was I at? In Canada? Or no, I was in Australia, and I only had one word to start with. They're like, it was a Chan On and Chuck Pierce, and they did
So he was with Cheon and Chuck Pearson. So keep note of that. These are people he's ministering with.
incredible meetings, and it was my turn. And I had one word. It was just the prophetic time in the end. I had one word, and I that's all I had. And God said, I'm not going to give you anything else unless you say this. But it was so stupid. And so I said, polka duck.
Okay. He said polka duck. I wonder if anyone's other radars are going off. I was so surprised when I was looking at the videos. I'm like, wait a minute. So just watch a little bit more.
And this woman screamed and about fell out. She just was like, there's no way. And it was her name of her company that she had just let die because it wasn't successful.
All right. So name of her company, Just Let Die, Polka Duck. I was like, why do I recognize that? I couldn't get my head around it. It was bugging me. So what did I do? I jumped on my own video and I looked at it. I'm like, there was something about that. Of course there was. It was in the Twitter thread with Matt Harkey, a returning champion. So after watching that video, I started seeing another one in my news feed. In this video, Bolz claims he heard God say Polka Duck, and then elaborates that it's the clothing company on Etsy, and that the husband of the woman who owns the company is a salt of the earth, and he's been mining for gold, but we got salt. Well, lo and behold, I found a Facebook post from the previous day where the CEO and founder of Polka Duck Designs checked into the conference with her husband and proprietor Salt Mine Industries. Again, all the info is right there on Facebook profiles. I was like, what? It's all right there. So Shawn's telling the story about this lady Polka Duck, and we just get the cross-reference confirmation here with Matthew Harkey about Polka Duck. Again, more information that can be found online, public information. So at this point, we're in 2016, right? On this little Shawn Bolz mini doc, I guess I'm doing. And this one's a little bit earlier. Let me get this one pulled up here. This is in 2015. Another prophecy does at Bethel.
I'd be like, he knows my name. Or hallelujah. Here we go. I always wondered how they did. I was never in a Pentecostal church, and a couple times growing up, other than a few camp meetings, and a couple times since the last 22 years of ministry, I've gone into some Pentecostal churches, and it always freaks me out when you do something and everyone starts screaming hallelujah and starts singing spontaneously together. And it freaks me out.
So he's telling a story about Pentecostals, and then he starts getting to the word right here.
That's good, though. And I feel like one of them is named James from Oklahoma. Is there James from Oklahoma? Look, you are Pentecostal. Look, you got a conference shirt on.
So I thought it was interesting. He makes it seem so normal. Like, I find it so interesting. He makes it seem so normal. Like, he's just telling a story about Pentecostals, and then he goes to start talking about this prophecy for this guy.
I love it. You're shining. That's awesome. Are you from Canada, though? Are you from Canada?
So interesting. He says James from Oklahoma. All right, just listen back to that again.
I love it. One of them is named James from Oklahoma.
So he says James from Oklahoma. That's the prophetic word that he got from God.
James from Oklahoma. I love it. You're shining. That's awesome. Are you from Canada, though? Are you from Canada?
So how would you get James from Oklahoma and then from Canada? That would be, yeah.
Your name is
Her
Canada.
name is Canada. Oh.
No. That's awesome. And you're not from Canada, but your name's Canada. Your parent with a K. What does Canada mean with a K? Canada. I stumped her. You guys, I'm just gonna read you something I wrote. Because you're part of this financial word that I have. Because you're gonna make Jesus a fortune.
So now we're getting into really direct words, life-changing words.
That's what he told me. And
everyone's getting excited.
Read their name tag. Their last name is Fortune.
oh,
Their last name is Fortune.
snap! Oh, that's crazy. Don't worry, it's not just about your last name though, because there was a financial wound where I think it was some sort of traveling ministry came through and something happened financially, got weird, and you guys can relate to what I'm saying, that almost like a theft from your guys' community happened, and it was in a spiritual way, and I felt like the Lord is saying that not only will you reclaim everything that's stolen, but you're also going to help other people who have financial wounds because of some of the stuff that was taught in Oklahoma, even in the Pentecostal world. I feel like the Lord's saying you're going to help people to learn how to be extravagantly generous again without religion. And you're named well because you're going to give Jesus a fortune. You really are, because there's going to be a message in a book and materials that come forth about
So tell him to write a book.
Financial recovery and financial blessing. And I feel like it's like that Richard Morris blessed life thing. It's like there's something that's on your life to live a blessed life and to bring people into it. And I feel like he's saying, in this area, you're
where there's been so much financial wounding in Oklahoma. In this area, you're going to be one of the greatest oases in the area.
So we have the Pentecostal confirmation, we have the name, last name, Canada, and then he says Oasis and they freak out.
Oh. Okay, so what is...
Our church is Oasis Church.
Their church is Oasis Church. So how do you know they're a Pentecostal church? Their church is Oasis Church. They're all on there. It's like all this stuff is, out in plain sight. And this is the thing, is like it keeps coming and coming and coming. So now he's at Bethel, he's preaching at Bethel, he's teaching at Bethel, he's a prophetic minister at Bethel. He's given lots of words at Bethel. And it's becoming more and more normal that this is just where he shows up. Like this is just something that he does. He's very closely tied to Bethel. Conferences, even one of their biggest conferences. I'm not going to do so much on this one, but I mean, he was at the Open Heavens Conference, which is one of Bethel's biggest ones. See if I can find that one real quick. I want to say it was, I have it right here. Yeah, right here. So he was one of the main guys speaking at Bethel's Open Heavens Conference, even. Right here, you can see. So this is Open Heavens Conference 2016. So he was very much involved with Bethel and a part of Bethel. It wasn't like something he was just, every now and then. He was part of their crew. He was part of the Bethel crew. All right, so now we're going to jump up to 2019 is the next part here. So going back to the Wayback Machine, we are back to Expressions 58. This is their website at 2019. This has about Shawn, the founding pastor. So in 2016, Shawn and Sherry transitioned out of their roles as senior pastors and fully developed their itinerant ministry, Bolz Ministry. So this is when they've left as pastors and they're more itinerant. And Joanne and Jen transitioned from associate pastors to senior pastors of the Toledos. Together, Bolz and the Toledos continue to make up Expression 58 executive team, and their vision and passion for what we are building has grown. We'd love to meet you and an opportunity to meet you. Okay, so now he's no longer in the pastoral role. He's left the pastoral role. He's now in an itinerant role. And he's now traveling more, and he's no longer, I guess, under anyone in particular, but he's heavily involved with almost everything Bethel's doing, really almost touring with Bethel in some ways. And one of the places he appeared was here at the Send, which was a big conference that had Daniel Kalinda, Todd White, Jeremy Riddle, Bill Johnson. It was a big conference. So let's go ahead and go over this right here.
Daniel Kalinda, come up here real fast, brother. This is one of my favorite human beings on the earth. This is like a home group to him. It's like they go to Africa. And this
so just see who's up there. We have Todd White who's up there.
But I will say this, I felt like
I think it's Ryan. Is that Reinhard Bonnke, or is it? I forget the name of the guy behind Todd White. Got Bill Johnson to the right there. You got Jeremy Riddle. This is the Jesus Image guy. Pretty sure it's Michael Koulianos.
It's like the best life coach in the whole
Rodney Howard Brown. I think it's who it is. Rodney Howard Brown.
Is about to give you business strategy, life strategy, people strategies. Yeah, come on up here. Sorry,
so this is in front of all these people. All right, this is the point I'm getting to. Is like this guy is prophesying in front of all of these people with all these leaders behind him. Everyone's all for it. So it's like I can't stress enough. This was like this was something he was a part of. Like very evident that he was there, and very evident that he was part of this whole thing, and that everyone knew him. Everyone was seeing him prophesying all these big conferences. They have the Azusa Now clip, which we covered in one of our earlier ones, where he prophesied at Azusa Now. So he's just doing everything. He's all over the place. Okay, so now we get to 2021. And this is where the text messages are done. All right, so now we're at the text messages. This is where this all starts here. So this is kind of where, if you watch my first video, it's like we started right here. So 2021, we're going to read just a couple of the messages to kind of give context for everything. So you're going to have to understand that I have no authority over Shawn. All right, so just starting with that. I have no authority over Shawn, but he's been very close to the organization, running closely with Bethel. He's no longer under a pastor. He's kind of his own just rogue itinerant ministry. He doesn't work for me. He doesn't belong to my organization, and I flew down to meet him, spent the entire day there, and flew back. I asked him to clean up his mess, and he has evidently decided not to do that. We've decided not to work to have him minister in our network anymore, and made it very clear that until he repents, you can't have any influence in anything that we do. Okay. If he worked for me, or is licensed through our organization, or even had a deeper connection to us, I would certainly be able to do more. So he's saying there's not very deep connection, They're having him at conferences. They're having him at their events. He's touring. I mean, a lot of times he was doing stuff with Bethel Music when they were touring. So doing tons of stuff with Bethel's name. If you feel like you need to sue him, then do that. Again, I'm not telling you to do that, but I'm just telling you that if you would take this further, then I would recommend you do something that lit a fire under him. I'm very sorry for your pain. Totally understand how you feel. I have no authority in his life. At this point, we don't intend to make a public statement about Shawn. As you pointed out, a public statement would just hurt Shawn, but the entire prophetic ministry worldwide. Again, that's the thing that people are really razzing on Shawn for. I noticed that Shawn doesn't do words of knowledge anymore. This is what's going to be interesting. If we go back to his bio, he doesn't really claim to be a prophet anymore. That's kind of when that stopped. I also think that he lost his house. I don't go for that. Looking for the part with TBN. Let's see here. Yeah, right here. So we also have talked to his board individually and together, which Shawn Foyt was a part of his board. Remember Shawn Foyt? We've asked him to pull out of ministry, and they don't want to do that, which I think is a major mistake. So you have Shawn Foyt, who is also a Bethel music artist, who apparently didn't think it was a good idea to pull Shawn Bolz out of ministry, but they have official authority to remove him. I honestly don't understand why they don't. Daniel had all the evidence and facts. I've talked to Shayon, El DeSalvo, John Arnott, the Bakers. We also have Todd White, who's up there. Not saying that Chris talked to him, but we know that Todd White was close. They ran together. And he also talked about ministering with Shayon, so we know that Shawn ministered with Shayon. And he canceled him. My take is God is going to deal with him. I want to be in his shoes. All right, now going to TBN. We no longer have a contract with TBN. So Chris in Bethel did work with TBN very closely. I haven't seen Matt Crouch in over a year, but I'm not going to take the role of going from ministry to ministry, telling him that Shawn was giving bad prophetic words. I don't have time to do that. I have no zero to call around. So, all right. So this is where it's, this is where we kicked off last time. So Bethel has very close ties with TBN. They stopped working with him at the time. Now Shawn Bolz is on TBN, and Bethel has told their leaders not to do anything with him, not to have any influence with him. And then if we go to TBN, we see that Shawn is on TBN. He's a member or an affiliate or commentator with TBN. This is where we go back to the Discovering God with Shawn Bolz series. So he's actively on TBN doing things and being featured on TBN to the point where he gets featured with Bill Johnson on TBN on June 1st, 2023. Now, this is 2 years after these text messages have come out. All right, this goes to the next video I did. So now we're getting to the recap world. So he did a video with Shawn Bolz promoting the book that he wrote back in 2015. All right. Now, you have to realize that you have Bill who knows about this based on what Chris has said. You have Bill now promoting this book with Shawn Bolz based on what Chris has said, that he knows what's going on. And you have TBN, who used to work with Bethel. You would think that Chris would at least tell TBN to not promote this guy about what's going on, especially his book on translating God. And where this all kind of became a firestorm is because this was featured on TBN's Facebook page just 9 days ago. I'm not playing the audio just because we've already reviewed this, but we can see here that just 9 days ago they aired this from 2 years ago, which was 2 years prior to what happened. So TBN kind of unknowingly kind of kicked a hornet's nest for Bethel. So a couple things to take note of here. Bethel not really addressing the problems with Shawn in a way that actually holds him accountable. They're ignoring it. They're letting other people take care of it. They're letting other people kind of have the problem and not really protecting the flock. Big problem. Well, it gets more interesting because in that same year, I believe actually 1 year later in 2024, this is kind of the last thing we'll tie together with IHOP. We had something happen with Jedediah Hartley and his dad, Bob Hartley. Now, Jed Hartley has been covering a lot of this stuff. He's been doing a great job trying to keep stuff to the forefront and make sure these things don't fall to the wayside. So, Jed, if you see this, shout out, man. Great work, and I'm so sorry this happened with your father. Obviously, it's got to be hard to deal with, but also wanted to just recognize that you're doing great work, helping make sure people understand what's going on here. So, this is an article from Protestia. Said, is a pervert predator finding solace and comfort at Bethel Church? No, it's not about Shawn. It's about Bob Hartley. So if you guys don't know, there was a lot of accusations, things that came out about Bob Hartley from the IHOP community. It was confronted. So over the last several years, my father has spoken rather openly to me about what he called his sexual indiscretions. However, it wasn't until Michelle Seidel 1 came forward publicly that I realized just how horrible his behavior was. Since I have spoken out, many women have come to tell me horrific stories about how my father used to prophesy to get them alone and vulnerable and then sexually assault them. While it pains me to say this about my father, I know these stories are true. A month ago, I sent the following email to Bill Johnson at Bethel Leadership. All right, so let's go through this email. I am reaching out to you because I want to warn you about my father, Bob Hartley. So Bob Hartley would come to BSSM a lot, like probably twice a year. Came twice when I was there, and he would give words just like Shawn. Now, both of these guys are from IHOP. Mind you, Shawn, earlier, 2011, he had time in IHOP. Both these guys are from IHOP. They're both KC prophets. So Bob Hartley quite simply has become a danger to himself and others. He has just recently physically abused one of his staff members. He has many credible accusations of sexual assault and rape against him, and he is blatantly abusing alcohol and painkillers. I just heard that he is traveling to Reading, and I've heard that Bill, you have been helping him, and I just want to be explicitly clear. He's a dangerous man and urge you to be extremely cautious in how you handle him. Jed, this had to be a hard email to write, man. I'm sorry. This last summer, when he and I met with you in person, Bill, he was supposed to confess and own up on his addictions and commit to a rehab plan. Instead, he prophesied to you, giving you spiritual permission to remarry after Benny's death. I was absolutely blindsided by this, and I am very upset that I didn't confront him right then and there. However, at the time, I was only aware of his substance abuse issue and was not fully aware of many instances of sexual abuse. This last summer, when he and I met with you in person, Bill, he was supposed to confess and own up his addictions. Oh, right there. So, Bill, I believe you have been warned about my father before, yet somehow it seems as if you continue to cover for him. So, Bill is now This is now Bill, another evidence of Bill covering for another guy. And probably Chris as well, obviously. I need you to take this seriously now. I fully believe my father has committed serious crimes and is deeply mentally unwell. Eventually, I believe he will be in prison for these crimes, but in the meantime, I have zero doubt he will continue to abuse people if he is given any power to do so. Please respond and let me know what this matter is being taken seriously. I still love my father, but I hold a great deal of personal responsibility in regards to helping protect people from his abusive patterns. Bill Johnson promptly responded to my email, and I got a call from Bethel's chief of security, and I was under the impression they were going to ban my father from the property. Sounds a lot similar to what they talked about with Shawn Bolz, how they're going to ban him from any ministry affiliation. Because of this response, I genuinely believed they were taking this seriously, but I was wrong. I began hearing my father was still attending services at Bethel, where he was telling women that he was a friend of Bill's and inviting them over to his house. From my understanding, Bill even saved him a seat at Bethel's Prophetic conference just days after my email. So you get this email. I mean, it just shows like they don't care because they know about what has happened with Shawn Bolz. Just a year earlier, they knew what was happening with Shawn Bolz. 2 years earlier. And then 2 years later, they're filming with TBN. They're promoting Shawn Bolz on TBN. And then a year later, they're still covering for Bob Hartley. Then 2 days ago, my father posted a video of himself in Bethel's auditorium. And this video seemed to be under the influence of alcohol. I'm not posting the video out of privacy of the child. There's a screenshot. Oof. I can't tell how much this made my skin crawl, my stomach sink to see my father still allowed in a church setting, much less to see him drunkenly speaking with a child. I immediately texted Bethel's chief security. Hello, this is Jed Hartley again. Last time we spoke, you assured me that Bethel Security would have my father banned from the church premises. But I've heard that he has been there multiple times, and he just released a Facebook video from within the church. Furthermore, I have heard he's telling people he's a friend of Bill and inviting young women over to his house. I thought I was clear. My father is a sexual predator and is deeply and mentally unwell. He is a danger to himself and others and needs psychiatric help. In no way should he be allowed on the property. He will use your church to find women and prey on. Hi, Jed. I'm sorry I miscommunicated about kicking your father out of Bethel. I was asked to gather information for the senior leadership team, and they would make the call about whether they wanted to give your father banned. I gave your leadership exactly what I spoke in your heart about the incident. I share my concerns and thoughts about the matter with our leaders. They may have spoken to your father while he's been around, and I'll follow up with them on that. As far as I've been told, they haven't made the decision to ban him from our campus. I don't have any social media, but let me know. Ask around about your father having gatherings at his house. I'll get back to you. I should not have had to be stated this publicly. Bill Johnson or Chris Valton Ministries should be the ones publicly addressing this, not me. Agreed. They are the ones who gave my father a platform. Agreed. And it's their community my father is preying upon. Agreed. But they don't care. And we're seeing it again with Shawn. So if you are in the Bethel community, please warn your fellow congregants. The issue is extremely serious, and it's clear your senior leadership they don't do nothing to protect your community. is doing nothing to protect community. As many are you surely asking? Yes, I do believe at least a few women are pressing charges against my father. Extremely difficult thing to do when your own church leaders don't take you seriously. It might take a while, but I do believe my father will face criminal charges. So what's this mean? This is kind of why I wanted to make this video, is put this all in context, right? So we have Shawn, who has a history of working with Bethel consistently, much like Bob Hartley did. Bob Hartley's situation came out last year. This article was in March of last year. And Bethel didn't do anything about it. They refused to do anything about it. Bethel knew about Shawn privately 2 years ago, and they didn't do anything about it. They say they did, but they didn't do anything. I mean, the fact that they're still promoting him on TBN, they're still promoting him, his books, doesn't really say much. And they never came out publicly and said anything. If time will tell, I believe it will, this is probably going to be handled just like things were handled with Bob Hartley, where nothing was done really. Bethel is losing credibility fast. They are losing, the prophetic world is losing credibility fast. To say that you are looking out for your flock, to say that you are caring for people, to say that you are trying to do what's best for your flock, but then this has been the pattern. And on top of that, you have a sexual predator that you didn't ban after the Sun told you. And now we have Shawn, who, man, has been manipulating people through prophecy, just like Bob Hartley, who's also a KC prophet. It's crazy because the Bob Hartley is technically a repeat from Shawn, but we're almost seeing it flipped in reverse because of the way it's stumbling out. So I'm grieved by this. It's sad to see that this is becoming a pattern. It's sad to see that there's not much happening about this. It's sad to see that this is, for what we can tell, it's not looking good. We haven't really had an official statement from Bethel yet. I would hope to get one from Bethel, and when we do, I'll be sure to cover it for you guys and let you know what they're saying. But Bethel has not really officially made a statement as of this recording of what they're going to do, what their thoughts are, if they're going to make a public declaration here of what should happen. So, all right, guys, hope you found this helpful. Thanks for hanging out, and be blessed.